And I just needed to do that, and I forgot to turn it around. I now hand it over to you, and the presentation and floor are yours. Please, an applause for Samson.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Farmer Samson Ogbole from Nigeria. Quickly, shout out to Mr. Kuhn, to Mr. Labioshino. Those are my guys around. Thank you so much. So, yep, this is a part of our farm. I chose this picture deliberately because I'm sure for some of us who've probably never been to Nigeria. And Nigeria is a country with a population of over 200 million people, with majority of us being youths. And like every other country in the world, most youths are not interested in agriculture. But we are gradually changing the story as we are doing something that is different, that youths are willing to come into agriculture. So what we do basically is grow plants without soil, that is soilless farming. So all the pictures I'll be showing you are pictures from the farm. What makes what we are doing unique is we are not trying to adopt what is outside inside, but rather we try to understand the principle and use what we have to replicate it. So on the left, you have tomatoes. In the middle, we have grow buckets. On the right, we have grow troughs. If you come to Nigeria, these grow troughs, we refer to them as water gutter for collection of water from roof of houses. So what we are doing is how to use what we have to achieve what is being done in Europe and the rest of the world. So for us, where we are going. So first, we understand that since the world is changing, it's important we understand where the world is going so that we can follow the same route. So first is in the physical. I remember when I came out this morning, Kuhn was asking me, what's the most important thing you want to get out of GreenTech? And I said, what's most important to me is I want to see what technologies are available so that we can find a way to adopt same in our own country. So we have, on the physical part, we are looking at things like automation. We are looking at things like 4D, robotics, and new materials like graphene. How can we use these things so that our processes are cheaper? We are looking at things like sensors, IoT, and of course data. So one of the basic differences between our generation of farmers and the farmers of the past in Nigeria is the fact that we are super concerned about data. So we monitor the temperature, the amount of rain, the length of rain, and all of that. We want to understand the roles that these things are playing so that we understand how best to tweak them to get what we want. Then, of course, the biological, gene sequencing, gene editing, CRISPR modification, because we understand that as Nigeria, most of the seeds that we get, they are not produced primarily for us. So you realize that as farmers, we are struggling to get the best out of the inputs that we are getting from Europe. So how can we take charge of this area for ourselves, by ourselves? So as a country, we understand that we have issues with growth. So Nigeria is a country that is growing very, very fast. And what that simply means is we are going to have so many of the young people aging at the same time, like they are having in places like Japan right now. And what that simply means is if majority of us are youth and we are going to age at the same time, this is going to affect our productivity. Now, how do we ensure that we do not leave that gap? Hence, we want to bring in technology so that as these people are getting older, they would have already produced some tech that can cover the space for us. Then, of course, we understand that if we are going to bring in more youth, we have to have what we call labor substitution, meaning the job to be done did not change, but we need to train people on how to get these jobs done. So the knowledge, then we have to have skill retooling, then we need to work on our gender gap or gender closure. So how do I mean? Traditionally, most of our female kids do not go to school. Even when they go to school, science is not their first point of call. Their first point of call is usually the art subject. And what this simply means is in a world that is going to become more and more tech-based, it simply means that the women will be left behind. And if that happens, we have more of a gender gap. So we have to be more intentional in our dealings to ensure that more females can come into the tech space so that we have what we call gender closure. Then, of course, the nature of work is going to change. One of the fallout from the whole COVID-19 pandemics was we had a lot of people in Europe. I mean, we read that on the news, that a lot of people in Europe were leaving their jobs telling you that, no, I do not find purpose in this thing. I do not find passion in this anymore, and so on and so forth. So for us, it's important that in all that we are doing, we are able to bring back purpose and passion, because this is what will bring about sustainability in the long run. So, from what we have done so far, we already have an impact on our business. Take, for example, traditionally, when we plant tomatoes in the open field, in about 2-3 days, the tomatoes is already getting spoiled. But with our soilless farming, we can have tomatoes without any preservative, no refrigeration, last up to a month. A while back, I supplied some tomatoes to some customers, and the tomatoes spent, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks, and then started getting spoiled. And the customers began to complain. Why is your tomatoes getting spoiled after 2-3 weeks? And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, but you used to be cool with it getting spoiled after 2 days. Why are you complaining now it's just after 2-3 weeks? Now, the point being, for every development that technology brings on board, the perspective of the customer will shift. And that becomes the new normal for the customer. So for us, we understand that it's not just about introducing something new or something better. We must be able to sustain it. 2, we must be able to use every data we collect to enhance the product. So it's not just data for data collection's sake, but data that helps. Then there is a need for what we call collaborative development. I remember backstage when we were still discussing, one of the first questions I know people always ask is, what help do you need? What help do you need? As Africans, we do not want to be helped like you are handing out things. We want to join in the process of development of the solution. We want to work together. Then, of course, we understand that our business operating model will have to change. I will skip this. This is about the government. I will just skip this because of time. These are our farms and our farm ladies. Now, it's also important for us as Africans that because we understand that technology is coming into play, we are also not ignorant of the fact that conflict, the way conflict has happened in the past will change. I remember those days when we watch movies where whenever there is a fight or a war, people carry horses and all of that in the name of fighting. And if, for example, I'm in Nigeria and they are using horse to fight in Europe, I know that before the horse will get to Nigeria, it will take a long time. But we understand that since we have things like militarization of space, wearable devices, all of these things coming up. I think last week I was discussing with my team and I made a joke. I said, how do we know whether the whole smart wristwatches we are wearing does not have a chip inside? That the day we offend one country, they just press something, everybody goes boom. We don't know. Now, same thing, the media space is changing the scheme of conflict. Same thing, biology, our food would also change how war will be fought in the future. So for us, we understand that it's not just about feeding us as a people or in Africa, but much more than that, it's about ensuring that if food would ever become a weapon, we do not want to be at the mercy of others. We want to ensure that we can take charge of our future. Our intelligence, our method of thinking first is contextual, so it's about the mind, how we think. Then emotional, we have our heart into it, we have our soul. And much more than that, as farmers in Africa, we realize that we have a lot of farmers who are not healthy physically. So we are always super concerned to ensure that the farmers who are producing our food, they themselves are healthy physically. I think that should be all. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Samson.
Thank you.
So it is indeed about autonomy, what you're talking about. You don't want to be at the mercy of others. That is the basic message we get from you.
No, collaboration.
By collaboration.
By collaboration, not at the mercy of others, but collaboration. We want to work together